call crash off the coast of Florida today, and that is where it happened, at Eglin Air Force Base. It happened a short time ago. We know the crash took place, and we know there's an all-out effort now to recover or find those who are involved in it, especially with deep fog.
The helicopters themselves and the air crews were assigned to a Louisiana National Guard unit, Army Guard unit. The Marines that were on board the one aircraft involved in the accident were assigned to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina.
11 Marines and soldiers are believed dead. This after a Black Hawk helicopter crashes in the Florida Panhandle. It happened during an overnight training mission, which is quite common near Eglin Air Force Base.
7 Marines, 4 soldiers believed killed, a routine training mission ending in tragedy. And late today, signs of that deadly crash now coming ashore.
Late today, signs of the tragedy washing on the shore. Pieces of the Black Hawk helicopter that crashed.
Sound like 2 cars hitting at high speed.
This is what may have led to the incident, the dense fog rolling in Tuesday that still hasn't lifted tonight. They routinely train in bad weather for real-world conditions, and we're heading out to practice insertions and extractions, seen here in this military video, dropping Marines from above in and out of the water. 2 helicopters were flying with only a half-mile visibility. By 8:30 p.m., one team turned back and landed safely. The other disappeared.
A reminder to us that those who serve put themselves at risk both in training and in combat.
In the helicopter that went missing, 4 National Guardsmen from Louisiana and 7 Marines from Camp Lejeune in North Carolina.
It is a very experienced unit and one that has received numerous accolades from its service to our nation.
We went literally within 24 hours from planning a wedding to planning a funeral. I put my save the dates for our wedding in the mail the morning the accident happened, not knowing what was going to happen. So the day that everybody was receiving our save the dates in the mail was the day that we were all making phone calls to let people know what had happened. And we all made phone calls to each other, to command, you know, trying to get a hold of things, trying to piece things together, and little by little we were able to find out that, yes, indeed, it was our men.
You know, like I said, I deployed twice with them, and I was always looking up to every one of them. You know, we'd see each other at team functions and, you know, being sister teams, I guess you call it, like we'd see each other a lot. And they always had a stellar reputation. And it was always with, like, a mutual respect thing of, like, you know, every time we'd see them in country, we'd pass through their place or they'd pass through ours, there was just this instant respect of how solid warriors they were, how solid raiders they were, and a team in general. And everybody, I think a lot of people envied them. Well, I know I did. Like, I envied their team. I had had a team like that once, and I envied it because I knew what it was like to be on the inside of a team that was that strong and that was that tight-knit.
I first heard about the crash in Navarre the morning after the accident happened. I went to the gym pretty early in the morning, and that's pretty much all everybody was talking about, was the fact that there was a crash involving our unit in Florida. And I knew that some of the guys that went down to Florida came into my office a couple days before they went down there to get some amphibious operations gear from us. So I knew exactly who was going down there and what they were doing. So I, you know, put 2 and 2 together. And then as the news started coming out and the outlook started looking grim, we knew that the loss of life was very likely.
So first and foremost, they were men, and good men at that. And everybody says it about people, the fallen. Everybody has nothing but great things to say about the fallen. You know, we're not saints, we're not perfect people, and that's not what we're looking for in this line of work. But the thing that you learn about people when they're gone, that sometimes you don't know about them in life, are some of the amazing things that they've done to impact the people around them, friends, family, and fellow operators. And all of these guys come with a story of how they affected our community and the people around them.
And when I think of Raider, I think of guys like this.
A Marine Raider is the baddest motherfucker on the face of the planet. You know, we're the guys that come together and do everything that nobody else wants to do.
And that's one of the things that I'm definitely fortunate for, is the ability to consider myself a Raider and be considered a Raider when you have guys like this that are also holding that name. You know, it's humbling. It's very humbling, because I mean, it's hard to describe how good these guys were. I mean, so Sean Flynn, we were talking to him, and he was trying to get us to describe the term pipe hitter to him, and like that's what every one of these dudes was a pipe hitter. In my mind, a pipe hitter is a guy that you want to be beside in chaos. Like, it's the person that is going to be the one first through the door. It's going to be the one that naturally wants to be the first through the door in a dangerous situation. He's going to be the guy that is the calmest, but also with the most experience and most knowledge in a chaotic combat situation that you want to be beside. You know, you want to be like him, and then you also, he's always kind of got a handle on it, no matter the situation, and you trust his instinct and you trust his judgment. And he's also continually striving to prove himself to everybody else on the team, regardless of how much experience he has.
All around, he was a great person. He really was well-liked by everybody and had a smile that could light up a room.
I am Destiny Flynn. I've served 13 years in the Army National Guard. 6 of those years were active duty time. I am a proud mom of Leilani Flynn. She's 2. And I'm married to Staff Sergeant Liam Flynn.
Actually, one great story about Liam that his brother told was how he had been out one night pretty late with his buddies, and his dad was worried about him, so he sent his brother to go check on him. And I guess he was out with a couple rowdy people. And so his brother went to go get him. He said, "Hey, Dad's really upset. You need to come back." And so he comes back to the house, and his dad starts sliding into Liam. And Liam just simply, and his brother was saying that this was like the best experience he'd ever seen Liam's dad ever be put in his place. He just kind of grabbed him by his arm and set him down gently, and said, "Listen, I've been downrange, I've been shot at, I've been in combat, and I've never had anyone give me as much grief as I have right now."
I had already been planning for about 5 or 6 months on my own, and one of my coworkers overheard me kind of talking about the plan to one of my bosses to make sure that I'd have time off from work to be able to take part in it. And he got really excited and said, "No, my girlfriend does this." I'm like, "She rucks a lot?" "No, she plans stuff like this for a living."
When the crash happened last year, I was actually in Florida coordinating a 1,500-mile statewide walk. And I remember my boyfriend reached out to Nate and he said, "If you're planning on doing anything regarding a ruck or a remembrance event, you have to get Lauren involved." And probably September of 2015, Nate reached out and he said, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the event I'm trying to put together to honor these 7 men. Would you be interested in coordinating?" And of course I said, "Hell yeah."
So she immediately volunteered to help and took my military plan and adapted it to a plan that could be understood by civilians. We talk in acronyms, we talk in military jargon, and she was able to adapt that to do a lot of the off-base coordination. And she definitely made this event what it was.
Nate called me in August of 2015. I was very familiar with the crash. We had been supporting those families since the crash happened, and asked me, kind of read me into what was going on, what he wanted to do, and asked how we felt about being the 501c3 that would benefit from it. And of course, I was interested immediately. Nate is extremely organized, and we hit it off immediately. Nate is what I was several years ago as an instructor at the school, so just kind of instant camaraderie right off the bat.
Once I started talking with Phil Noblin, immediately he said, "Let's do it." And knowing that I had a partner from an established foundation definitely helped us get the ball rolling as far as how we're going to raise money for it, how we're going to pay for the different logistical requirements, hotel rooms, food, sustenance, medical supplies. That's something that's way bigger than, a staff sergeant can really take on by himself.
Destiny and I first started seeing all of the announcements that it was going on. Nathan had gotten in touch with those girls too because he was very adamant that he wanted us to be a part of the planning process, that we knew what was going on and that we had kind of a hand in the planning so that we were completely on board with everything. It was very important to him that we were completely on board with everything that was going on. And Destiny and I pretty much from the get-go knew that this was something that we wanted to also be a part of.
He asked me, if I wanted to do the ruck, and I said yes, and he said, you don't have to do the full thing, but once he asked me, I was fully committed.
I've known Nate for a long time, and I think it was just, through conversation about it. He was riding back and forth to Florida kind of right after everything happened, and he had mentioned it, and it was like a no-brainer that I was going to be a part of it. There was definitely no doubt in my mind, but as we talked about it, it was like he was telling me what I was going to do, not asking me if I was going to do it. And things like this there's no doubts, ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, this is definitely a priority, something that needs to be done instead of something just to do. It's not an option.
I became involved in the Ruck March only about a week before the march, the ceremonies had started. They were short a corpsman, and I offered my services as a corpsman, being prior tenure corpsman.
And I asked him, I was like, hey, Uncle Mo, do you think I heard about you doing the ruck. Do you think I can do it with you? And he said, sure, well, let me ask everybody. And I was like, okay. And he called me back a few days later and said, yeah, you can do it. And I said, okay. And it was on after then. And then he ended up getting deployed overseas. So I had the option to stay or go. And I just was like, I want to stay to show how really important these guys are.
I was actually visiting my old team, 8232, on when they were out doing some training. And they told me about it. They had the paddle with them that we carried, and they were in the process of wrapping it. And those guys were actually on the second bird that initially were part of the initial rescue efforts. So they told me about it, and they told me about Nate Harris setting it up and how he was originally intending for those guys to be a part of it, but they were all going to be deployed at the time. So that night, I texted Nate and said, "Hey man, I knew all these guys. I want to be on board," and that was it.
Well, for one, I feel like I don't think we've done anything like this ever as a community to honor our fallen. It's not just about the Raider 7. This is about everybody who's passed away.
One of the things that really hit home, us being located in Florida, the crash happening in Florida, and us wanting to really be involved because of the nature, of it being in Florida.
We also had an individual that brought his personal RV and drove it the whole entire way, and led to a lot of sleepless nights. And the fact that he volunteered up his own personal property to help us, blew us away.
One of the big benefits from the sponsorship that we had was an RV that we were able to wrap with vinyl, with logos and sponsor logos. And it was kind of a moving billboard for everything, to let people know what we were doing, to create awareness, to let people know who the Brothers in Arms Foundation is and what we do. One of our board members, Steve Reichert, made a phone call and got us a free 747 to fly Gold Star families from Wilmington all the way up to Dulles and back for some of the funerals at Arlington. That's a $250,000 freebie that he was able to pull off, and he did it not once but twice. Once during the funeral time frame, and again to fly all the ruckers and the family members down to Florida to start the march.
It goes back to that connection. And not knowing any of these guys personally and getting to know them and seeing these people that cared about them enough to fly from, the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
We're going to be ruck marching for 770 miles from the crash site that is literally hundreds of yards from where we're at right now, right over there. We're marching from this crash site all the way back to Campbell's Unit to signify bringing our brothers home and to honor their memory. As we know that as the kids grow up, there's a big puzzle piece missing in their lives. So if there's any way that we can help build context on how amazing these men were, this documentation can hopefully help show them how much that they meant to us, that we're doing this in honor of them. We're gonna have 7 teams of 2 to 3 individuals. And each team is responsible for about 12 miles. And we're basically leapfrogging all the way until we get to Camp Lejeune. So we'll have 45-pound packs. We'll be carrying a Marine Raider flag. We'll be carrying a paddle that was recovered from the crash site. So it's a very significant paddle. I ask that if anybody comes up asking about the paddle, don't let them hold it. I mean, let them look at it, but that's a very special paddle, guys. And I know you guys know the history of the paddle, so I want to get into that. So guard that paddle with your lives when you're carrying it.
When a Raider leaves a team, you know, they would have a paddle party, and then, you know, your husband would bring home a paddle. But obviously there's deep-rooted tradition within the Raider community with the paddle. In this situation, the paddle was given to me, which wasn't how I pictured it. But, you know, after the accident happened and they recovered a paddle, just kind of signified a lot more to us, to the families, and to the Raider community.
To do push-ups on what would become the memorial was an honor to us, and we walked. I mean, it wasn't a cool day. It was a pretty hot day, and to see the strollers going, and you know, people flew in from Liam Flynn's family all the way from Ireland.
In honor of Captain Shaw, we were Team 6, which was Captain Shaw's team, Stanford Shaw III. We each had a plate. Each team had a plate engraved. So you've got kind of these 3 places that kind of been memorialized. I guess in my mind, there's that one that's on the bridge. Halfway down the bridge, there's kind of like that makeshift memorial. And then there's the memorial that's right next to the highway. Well, I was opposite of that on the island side. And so I stopped at that beach and I'd gathered up all the sand. And so I had all this sand that I took with me during the whole ruck march. So I have that sand with me now. And that was something that I specifically wanted to do for myself, to take a piece of them with me along the way in the route. In a way, in my mind, you know, even in a physical way, there's probably still oil mixed in from the helo, maybe some fuel, you know. Those men fell into the water there, and that was their final resting place. And to take that land, is, in my mind, has become hallowed. To take that on the march with me the whole way. Some of that sand I'm going to disseminate and share with the family members, and then some of it I'm going to take up to Arlington.
We were Team 4, Team Saunders. We were rucking for Tom. We were rucking for everybody that we know who's fallen. So it wasn't just about Tom, and I don't think Tom would have it any other way. I kept my 50-pound pig egg in there that I've had in my ruck for the longest. I haven't done a SR, RNS patrol in a long time. I've just kept that pack set up for rucking. So I didn't change a thing. I kept it going just the way I normally keep it going. Jeff had a plate, so we wanted to make sure that we had a plate to present to the families that was legitimately carried by us throughout the duration of the event.
The Ruck March is a healing event. It's about honoring the men that you loved and the people that you looked up to, the brothers that would stand next to you through anything.
Watching the families, I mean, watching what they, what they lost, like that first day when we were rucking along, doing the 2 miles together, and watching, like, people come up and take turns with the flag and the paddle and stuff, and it was like, that's, you know, one of the last links to their kids other than the memories. That was hard.
I ran into a mother who was crying on the side of the road. And she was saying thank you from her son. And we didn't ask about her son, but this was the very first day, and I remember hugging her. And it was late at night, it's dark and it's raining, and that's really gonna stick with me.
We walked through Thomasville, Georgia, and we were on a long stretch of road. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and we saw this white light on the side of the road, maybe 2 miles down the road. It was a long stretch of road, and we thought that was the RV. We thought we were almost done, like, oh, wow, we're moving quicker than we thought. And as we got closer, we realized that it wasn't an RV, but it was a man and his son. And his son was maybe about 7 or 8 years old, and they were out there with a cooler of water, ice-cold water. And they were legit, the only reason they were out there was to see us. And when we walked up to them, he started talking to his son, and he said, son, this is what real heroes look like. And I mean, I get emotional just thinking about it, to think that that's the kind of impact that we had on the public.
The biggest concern was, of course, blistering. Several of them had blisters. One of the fiancés, she may have had a stress fracture off to the side of her foot, but she finished hard and went strong.
Despite the discomforts physically, it didn't break anyone. Even the people that were more challenged by it, and it was physically challenging.
I think it was equal parts pretty much mental and physical. And when I say the mental part, the emotion part. At the end of the day, knowing what this march signified, the idea behind it, and bringing them home. And the physical part was just that. I mean, constant pounding on the pavement. And I've been a runner for years, and I still don't think anything that we could have done could have prepared our bodies to take the beating like it did.
The hardest part of the ruck was rucking down the dark and lonely roads. Rucking's not a fun thing to do. It's once you hit about mile 8, your feet start hurting. You start losing track of why you're doing something, and you start getting tunnel vision. If you do have a police escort, which we didn't have all the time, but the times that we did, and it was in front of you, those lights are nauseating for me, at least personally. Those things were difficult, but there was no hard part of the march because the purpose behind this and the people that we were doing it with and the support that we had made everything worth it.
I guess what really stands out for me in this is the community support, and it's not just our direct community, but the larger communities, the places that we're walking through.
Brought out in fellow support of our fellow Marines that were lost, and the Raiders that are doing the Memorial March. That's what brought us out to show our support. support our troops and support the cause of what it is today, what this is all about.
I had a Marine buddy from Augusta, Georgia I used to work with that shared the story about what the Marine Ruckers are doing today. And I said, hey, wait a minute, they're coming through Tallahassee. These guys are doing 770 miles collectively. They can gladly have a Sunday of my time.
I think, you know, the outpouring of support from the community was something that none of us could have ever fathomed. And, you know, being out behind the scenes, participating in the ruck, seeing everyone that comes out, figuring out how we calculate that support into our pacing was probably the biggest logistical piece, because we had people contacting us through every means possible. I was getting text messages, voicemails, Facebook messages, emails, people direct messaging us through Twitter, through Instagram, through every avenue.
We want to see the soldiers. And we wanted to bring some special stuff to them because it's so special that they're honoring those that lost their lives.
It's a wonderful blessing, and this is what we need to show solidarity. We're all in the armed forces, and right now we're all Marines.
The reason why I'm here, my grandfather served in World War II at Iwo Jima, and I feel like no matter what it is, it could be Navy, Marines, Air Force, you name it, we're all brothers in arms, so I'm going to support no matter what.
And I feel like to a large extent, even though this was specifically for these 7 men within MARSOC, I really feel like what brought everybody into the fold, and especially myself, are connections to the other men that have died within MARSOC, within the community. And I saw that with people that came up to us that had gotten out of the military years ago, that maybe they were in Vietnam, maybe they were in World War II, maybe they were in the Army or the Air Force, in different branches of service in the Navy and the Marine Corps, and how it meant something to them to see us walking as a representation of not just MARSOC and of this team specifically, but of the military community as a whole.
I think it's been an emotional journey for all of us in one way, shape, or form. You know, it started out being that I only wanted to be behind the scenes, and I still do. But you come to know the 19 men that put those 45, men and women, who put those 45-pound sacks on their back every single day. Also that they could make sure that their brothers, their husbands, and their fiancés will never be forgotten.
I'd say the camaraderie. I mean, this is already a tight-knit community, but I didn't expect to, we're all related somehow. You know, if I haven't worked with these guys, I've worked with somebody that they worked with. I've been around for a long time. These guys have been around for a while too. But we connected in a way that, you know, you can only connect on a deployment, really.
This is about the connection. So in doing this, I've got a greater connection with a bunch of guys that I didn't know before, and a stronger connection with guys that I have already known.
The Raider community is like a brother. I mean, even though I'm not a Marine, I identify with this community. I'm far loyal to this community than anything else or any other group of people or unit, even the Navy, whatever, sailors. These guys are brothers and a family that I would die for.
Dan would teach me like history, and then Mr. Cortez would teach me like proper postures and techniques of rucking.
He did fantastic. He really did fantastic. He was a joy to work with. Real humble, really polite guy, really open and receptive. And he could take a ribbon in stride, because we definitely pushed him as much as we could, within reason. But we wanted him, I guess in some other way, in some subtle way, I guess, or unconscious way. Just kind of wanted him to know what it was like to be a part of the boys. With him specifically, his Uncle Mo, who he's known for his whole life, who knew his parents before he was even born here in Lejeune, where they were all stationed. It was a real important, significant thing for me to basically be Mo's representative. to him and to in some ways be his guardian and also to be his companion on that walk because he really wanted to do it with Mo. And even when Mo couldn't do it, he still, and I think in a lot of ways, he stood up and still walked in Mo's place. And so for me to be able to walk with Garrett specifically, it was a real honor and a privilege, you know, to show Mo that, you know, hey, you know, you're not here, but I want you to know that you're still here walking. And for Garrett to see him every day get up and put on his ruck and go to work, you know, basically is what I think of it as, and get the job done. You know, is an inspiration. The guy's awesome.
As we continued on every day, every leg, you'd meet and talk with the friends of the guys that were on these helicopters, and you'd learn more about them. So as this entire event progressed, it became more important to everyone that was involved with it.
See you again by the door, no wind, but the photograph will always remain. Wasn't supposed to be this way. See you again someday. Never above you, never below you, never beside you. Never above you, never below you, never beside you.
All right, so the significance behind this plate is Staff Sergeant Kemp was a big fan of Captain America. He even had a full back tattoo of Captain America and the shield. So when Jenna was talking to the guy that customized the plates, he went the extra step, he made this plate for Jenna, and we carried it the entire way to signify bringing Carrie home.
Save me a seat and down, when my time comes, I'm gonna die trying. No one's gonna ever understand what it meant. Never above you, never below you, never beside you. Never above you, never below you, never beside you.
Shortly after the accident, I started finding pennies all over the place, in the most randomest things, and in my path, places that I knew I had walked a million times and hadn't seen them, and all of a sudden they were there. And so after finishing out the first ruck, we did 12.5 miles on our first leg, and I was tired and questioning why I did this and why I signed up and still had 9 more days of this ahead of us. And I got in our rental car, and at my feet there was a penny, and it had a cross laser cut it out of the penny. And as the week unfolded and went down, there were people coming up to me as I shared the stories with them about the penny, and then there were people that were coming up to me, hey, I found this penny.
Erica got injured during the grueling ruck that all of these individuals have taken on. And I remember saying, you know what, I always want Marcus's pack on the road, so I'm gonna make sure that his pack is always on the road for you, and I'm gonna take on this 13-mile leg. And I remember carrying it, and I looked down, and right as I looked down, there's a series of 4 pennies. So we're probably at mile 11. My legs are on fire, my feet are on fire, but I bend down, I pick them up, and at the end, I just say, you know, Marcus left these for you on the road.
I found a penny on the floor in the hotel room before we left Myrtle Beach. So it's been popping up along the way throughout the course of the entire 10 days, and it's, I think, his way of showing me that he was with me throughout the march.
Laid that squarely on your face.
Oh wait, no, you do. I want a little bit of makeup.
Nice.
Through that.
It's important to give prominence to these people's lives. And I think at the end of the day is we're all going to look back and remember what a trying and physically demanding experience it was, but how rewarding it was, and what a beautiful way to memorialize these men's lives.
And this was above and beyond just having a celebration of life, a memorial ceremony, you know, it's something that's a typical tradition in the military. This was, we got together and we proved to the world just how much we mean to each other and how tight-knit our community is.
And I think that this is something that everyone is gonna, forever hold with them. So the men that died in that helicopter crash are gone forever. But this is a way that we can make new memories in their names.
Honestly, this was one of the biggest honors I've had in my life.
And Nate and I couldn't have picked a better crew, and not even picked, had the people come to us to make this what it was. You know, we started as strangers and we're leaving as family.
Now this paddle has made the long, painful journey back to where it belongs. Those who carried it did not do it alone. God, they relied on you, they relied on each other, and the strength of those we lost. Never above you, never below you, always beside you. If this paddle could talk, it would share the stories of the passion and determination to get the mission accomplished.
So on behalf of the Marine Raid Memorial March, we want to present this paddle to you for Hotel Company.
I didn't tell her that I was going to be doing that. And looking at the videos, I can see that she was getting emotional when I called her up. I just knew how much that paddle meant to so many of us, but the spouses of the guys. That paddle was there when their husbands lost their life. And I felt that what is more fitting than a spouse of one of the men to be the last set of hands, at least from the Marine Raid Memorial March, the last person to take possession of it, was Destiny Flynn.
I'm very grateful that I'm part of a community because most people don't get this kind of love and support anywhere else. And, I just really appreciate the people that just call and text or just to see how Leilani's doing, or when they write her a letter, about our father, little things like that really mean a lot.
Signifies the honor, courage, commitment, sacrifice, and legacy of these great men. And to consider that it was carried over 700 miles by their fellow Raiders, family, and friends is a tremendous testament to both their personal character and their professional reputation.
Down! One! Down! Two! Down!
I don't wish my life situation on anybody, but I wish my new perspective on the world.
A lot of people mention the word family. That's something that couldn't be more true. So for the kids watching this and stuff, they'll probably never know us, most of us, but their fathers were, guys we'll always think about, and we could meet them 15 years from now and they'd tell us who they were, and it'd be instant, hey, you're part of your family,
Down!